Well, welcome to the show, Seth. Thanks for coming on the show,
Of
and
course.
excited to have you here and just kind of learn more about your story and your journey. So, why don't we start with just kind of who you are and how you came about to being a business owner?
Yeah, great question. It's kind of funny because I was never particularly a good student.
Hmm.
um, I like to think I was just too smart for school.
Right. Don't we all?
The
I thought I
rigid,
was going to
yeah.
run the world after graduating from college.
The rigidity of the classroom didn't fully understand my brilliance. Um, yeah, I really what it was I couldn't focus in on what I was interested in.
Mm.
And
And
so
this was in high
in high
school.
school,
Yeah.
yeah. So I did well in like the English and the, literature and create, anything on the creative
Hmm.
speaking engagement, drama, whatever side of things, public speaking. But the math didn't interest me, the science didn't interest me. And so I barely graduated high school. I was working at Domino's Pizza.
Yeah.
And I thought, I got to do something with my life. And so I joined the army.
Okay.
And my grandfather was a World War II fighter pilot in World War II, and went on to do a lot of amazing
Was he in the
things.
Pacific or where was he?
Don't
Yeah.
know. Yeah. Um, but the bottom line is that he really loomed large in my life, and so
Hmm.
the military seemed like it would please him, but it also I kind of realized I needed some discipline. It's actually interesting. I was thinking about this the other day that when I was growing up, even in high school, I always wanted to go to military school.
Mm.
And it's funny because I did the army and I got out and I was like, I never want to do that again. But I liked the structure
Right.
of it. And that really has carried through for the rest of my life, learning how to structure my life, learning and then really learning how to lean into my own strengths and what
Hmm.
I enjoyed doing. So when I got out of the army, my dad and I started a railing company together
Okay.
that I still run, and we were pretty natural at the general contracting,
Hmm.
building side of things. I always knew how to build. I was a pretty good finish carpenter, actually,
Uh,
and so we, through certain circumstances and happenstances, we actually ended up starting an aluminum railing company,
okay.
and then we just kind of built it out from there. Within 8 years, I was running the business.
What was it called then?
It was just called Railworks, and
Okay.
now it's American
No, it's
Railworks.
Okay.
And it's funny because Railworks, everybody thinks railroads,
Yeah.
and I'm like, I don't know if in hindsight I would have changed the name of
Uh-huh.
it, but it does give some confusion. But once I explain it, you can see it
Yeah.
on the screen there. And you've seen it,
Right.
obviously, you know me. Um, but uh, within 8 years, I was running the company, and then I bought him out in 2010,
Okay.
and I've been running it ever since.
And how's that changed your world, so to speak, going from a family, full-fledged family business to just now it's your business?
Oh, that is a great question. Uh, so it's interesting because for close to 30 years, it's been a so-called family
Hmm.
business. I've employed various uh, up to 5 family members at any given time over the
Hmm.
last number of years, and we've just in the last few months separated out from any remaining family members. So
Mm.
they would work for me in various capacities, and it was always challenging because the the family dynamic and how you treat correction, how
Uh-huh.
you treat job performance, it's so muddy, and
Yeah.
we just never figured out how to navigate it. And so I'm not putting the blame on them, but I think it's more just I don't know how honestly people do family businesses.
Right.
Again, almost 30 years at this, and it's only now where I really feel like I'm free to kind of do
Uh-huh.
everything I want to
Without hurting anyone's
without hurting
feelings. Yeah.
anyone's feelings, without feeling like you have to elevate people to positions of power when they're not equipped for it.
hmm
Um, yeah.
And what would you say is the difference? Because ideally you're cut from the same cloth, but one family member is seeking more education, more knowledge. The other family members may not be as motivated. So how
Yeah.
did you deal with that with the years that you were working with the family? And
Okay. I love that. I absolutely adore that question. Um, for me, American Railworks was the only option.
hmm
I never, there was no plan B.
right.
There was no, well, if this doesn't work out, I can always go
hmm
do. It's like marriage. It's like, we're in it for life.
Yeah.
We're going to figure it out. For all the other family members, it was their fallback. Well, I'm going to
mm
go try this. And if that doesn't work, I can always come back and work for Seth.
Ah.
And so again, it's not, this isn't a, this isn't a judgment on their character.
hmm
It's simply an observation, an objective observation, which is if if your business, if the business in which you're working is your fallback and it's not your number
Yeah.
one, you're never going to push through those really hard times. So when times are good and your performance is good and things are going well and you're getting paid well and and the economy's running, things are great.
hmm
Money tapes over a multitude of sins.
Right.
But when times are really tough, you know, the owner, for me, I'm willing to go $250,000 into debt to keep this
Right.
thing going.
Because you believe in it.
Because I believe in it and because and I see the potential in it
hmm
and it's all I really want to do. And they can always go get a job somewhere else.
hmm
And so that's really where that dynamic. So, you know, I've talked to my insurance agent and his brother run this insurance company.
hmm
And the big question that I keep asking them is, are you both all in?
Right.
Because if you're both all in, then you can figure out the
Yeah.
navigation of, vacation time and sick and who's, it's like a marriage. Like sometimes you're going to be up and she's going to be down. And
Yeah.
sometimes there's not a fairness ledger where you're keeping track.
hmm
But you have to both be all in. And again, it's just when it's a fallback, you're just not all in.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So when did you know it was your only option?
2 years after I started doing it. So I
Yeah.
got out of the Army when I was
Uh-huh.
21. And by 23, I remember the very moment I was driving. I lived in Bellingham at the time, and I was driving back to the office space. And I just remember thinking to myself, this is going to be how I pay for my kids' college education. Like, this will be it. Yeah. And I didn't dream, I don't think I could have known where it would be now and where it's going to be in the next
Right.
10 years, but I knew I could be successful at it.
Now, were you outsourcing stuff back then, or
Yeah.
because I know that recently you brought in more of the manufacturing locally,
Yeah.
right? And what drove that decision?
To bring in manufacturing locally,
Yeah,
quality control.
quality control.
Yeah. More tight control over the process. So we, for the first, up until 2016, we were outsourcing the manufacturing and powder coating of the product
hmm
to sources in Canada, and they've built up. They were the first to market front runners on the aluminum railing technologies. So they had really kind of gotten it done up there in Vancouver and Toronto because of the climate, and then it sort of made its way down into Washington State. There's a big presence down in Florida, but I would say really Washington State, New York, New Jersey, and Florida are the three sort of central areas where, or the three main areas where aluminum railing technologies are really at the forefront. Everybody knows to use them.
So,
and the rest of the country is still catching up.
Yeah. Now, do you see that speeding up? Because you read up about the reindustrialization of America, right? Do you see that aluminum railing is coming back online in a bigger way?
It's yes. What it's less coming back online and it's more an emergent market.
Mm,
So traditionally, when you think about your deck railings or your stair railings,
yeah.
it's wood or steel, right? Those are kind of the two main products. There was a brief flirtation in the market with vinyl, but it's rubbish.
Hmm.
And so if you think about, if you have a 1965 home, you've probably got a wood railing out
Right.
back. You know what I mean? And so in Washington State, again, particularly driven because of the climate,
Hmm.
everyone understands. So the first 15, 20 years, we were just educating the public
Wow.
and our clientele and the general contractors and the architects about the benefits of
Hmm.
aluminum over steel or wood.
Right.
Now everyone understands it. So it's in the Washington State
Hmm.
and Oregon, and again, Florida, New York, New Jersey. So it's more what differentiates us
You're
as a
right.
company. But there's a few markets, for instance, Nashville,
Hmm.
Denver, and Salt Lake City, Austin, of course, but Austin is still dry enough
Hmm.
that they can get away with steel. But Salt Lake City, extremely corrosive salt
Wow.
environment. Denver's the same, Portland. And so Salt Lake City is in almost every demographic, it's very much like
Yeah.
Seattle. Not quite as blue as Seattle,
Right.
but building products don't care about
Yeah.
politics. But it's demographically about the same size, but they're about 20 years behind in best practices for
Really?
building.
So does that give you an opportunity to break into
Absolutely.
those markets
Yeah,
and have?
absolutely.
Okay.
So it's really an education piece
Yeah.
again. The thing I've learned, at least for us, and I think this is actually across all
Right.
businesses, is we're constantly in the process of educating our clientele.
Hmm.
We're constantly in the process of educating the public to be future clientele. And so, whether that education is about the product itself or
Hmm.
whether it's about our differentiators, whether it's about the service, whether it's about offering solutions, it's about the culture, you're always educating the public over and over. So, you
Uh,
never stop, first and foremost, being educators and teachers.
right.
Yeah,
I figured, in a slowing economy on the construction side, that's an even bigger opportunity to continue that education.
absolutely.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And it is a slowing
Yeah.
economy.
Yeah.
Regardless of what you're hearing,
Right.
we can all see it. Yeah.
So how do you balance, being co-founder from a family business to today where you're running it, and also with family obligations?
Yeah, I have two kids,
Hmm.
6-year-old girl and a 4-year-old boy. Light of my life, you know how it is.
Yeah, they're
It's
growing up
just,
fast.
oh my gosh, and it's just so fun. But it's a lot of work.
Yeah.
Beautiful, wonderful, spectacularly amazing wife. Um, so I employ the 525 principle,
Mm.
and this
What
is
is that?
a Warren Buffett idea principle, which is um, I took the I sat down for a few weeks and I wrote down the 25 things I wanted to accomplish in my life, the 25 priorities for my life,
Mm.
the 25 things that mattered to me in my life. And that was a combination of aspirational and also practical. Like, what am I
Mm.
actually doing now? And then I, through that process, then took the top five, circled the top five, and put the other 20 on the do not do under any circumstances
Ah.
list, because the other ones are good enough that you will want to spend time and energy nurturing those, but they're not the best.
Mm.
So for me, my list is my faith.
Mhm.
And I actually say faith in action, because it's not just enough to have faith. You have to actually be
Right.
the hands and feet, and really project it. Not for me, not in a sort of evangelical way, but
Mhm.
through our giving, through what
Yeah.
we do with how we treat people, particularly with our financial giving, though, and then just attending church and
Right.
reading scripture and stuff like that. my family, and I defined my family as Alicia and the kids,
Right.
right? Because you can go, well, mother-in-law and sisters and brothers, and
Father. Yeah.
they can clutter that. Now, I don't put extended family on the do not do under any circumstances list, but they're very much like they come second, third, fourth, fifth.
Mm-hmm.
Third is my health and fitness,
Yeah.
and then I define that in every category. I actually define what that looks like on a daily or weekly basis. Number 4 is rest and relaxation. This has been a hard one for me, and I think it is for most entrepreneurs, but really trying to make rest and relaxation a priority.
Yep.
And then 5th is my company, right? And then there's certain things that sort of.
So that's interesting
Yeah.
that you mentioned the company last.
Yeah.
Is there a reason behind that, or just
Yeah.
that?
I want to be successful in every avenue of life that I work at. And if the pursuit of success in my company costs me in other areas, and I think for the entrepreneurial type, I think it has to get placed near the bottom, because we're naturally inclined to put our time, energy, emotion, and effort into our businesses. And so I have to put it at 5th because it's easily going to supplant the others.
Yeah.
And so by putting it at 5th, what I find is if I miss a couple workouts, or I'm daydreaming about work, or I'm working from home and my kids are like, Daddy, can you play with, and
Right.
it's like, no, I'm answering
this
emails.
is important. Yeah, I gotta.
Then I will very easily spin, the pendulum will go very easily into work. When I was single, all I did was work and train.
Right.
That's it.
Yeah.
I had very little social life. I had no social life outside of training and maybe some church stuff. Yeah.
Well, that's interesting. So what are the other items on your top 5?
That's it.
That's it.
So faith, number 1, Alicia and the kids, number 2, health and exercise, number 3, rest and relaxation, number 4, and my company is on number 5. And then, like I said, I define, there's all these subpoints as far as what that looks like practically. How much time do I spend and that type of stuff.
So how did you come about that information and knowledge to say, I'm going to figure out the 5 most important things in my life? Was it a book that you picked up, or?
So one of my favorite books of all time is Atomic Habits by James Clear. And I was watching a TED Talk, or one of those types of talks on YouTube, and he talked about Warren Buffett's 525 principle. And it just made so much sense, because I found it was like, I got married and I was, I had these dreams of like Alicia riding my motorcycle with me, being on the back. And she didn't
Sounds like a Top Gun movie.
Yeah. And then when I had my first kid, I was like, the risk to reward ratio was just so far off that I got rid of my motorcycle. And I, used to snowboard every Saturday, and it was like, I got to get up at 5 or 6 in the morning, and then I don't get home till 6 or 7 at night. Well, that's a full day that I'm missing my wife, and she doesn't like the snow. So it wasn't something we did together. So there was a lot of activities, mostly, sort of athletic related, that I did, so like I say, I worked, I trained, but there was a lot of supplemental on the training side of things, like going snowboarding or something.
When you say train, that's mixed martial arts, right?
Mixed martial arts and weight training.
Weight training.
So I even define that, right? So Monday, Wednesday, Friday, I do strength and conditioning training. And then Tuesday and Saturday, I do jiu-jitsu now.
Okay.
I don't strike anymore, because I'm old and I want to preserve the
nugget. Or you just work better at blocking.
Yeah, well, my defense in boxing has always sucked. So my defense is hope that I get hit. Hope that I wade through the damage of getting hit enough that I can hit the other guy more.
Do you find that the jiu-jitsu and the MMA training has helped you as a business owner?
Oh, for sure.
Yeah, like what would you say are the top principles that you've
It's
learned, and how have you applied that?
I love that question. Um, I would say first and foremost that problem solving in. So I've heard this description before. I think it was Joe Rogan who said jujitsu or mixed martial arts is high level problem solving in real time with dire physical consequences. And, the
It's a good way to
way
put it.
it is a good way
Yeah,
to
it's a
put it.
really good way
And
to
the
put it.
way the brain has to employ both unconscious competence,
Mm-hmm.
conscious competence, while being aware of conscious
Mm-hmm.
incompetence and trying to be aware of unconscious incompetence, right? Those
Yeah,
four
it's just super
categories.
complex.
It's just it's so it's so mental,
Mm-hmm.
and there's so much focus that needs just in breathing,
Yep.
right? Like as a coach, you've been a coach for a long time. How many times do you have to tell your students,
Just breathe.
breathe,
Yeah.
relax,
Uh-huh.
we're just having fun here, you know? So all of that, like the immediacy and the pressure
The stress.
and the stress
Yeah.
of training and learning how to breathe through that. And then it's not just a mental and emotional stress, it's a physical,
Mm-hmm.
there's physical
Yeah.
consequences to it. There's pain. And so the ability to learn how to stay calm and navigate that really, I always like to make a joke. It's like you're going to go into a sales meeting. The worst they're going to say is no.
Yeah.
The worst that's going to happen in jujitsu is I'm going to get choked unconscious.
Right. You'll be fine.
So
you're gonna take
who
a
cares
nap.
if they say
you're
no?
gonna take a nap.
Yeah. Yeah. Actually,
It's like
yeah,
you're doing the guy a favor.
Yeah. Yeah. So I would, yeah. So really, it's first and foremost the ability to master yourself mentally, emotionally, and
Mhm.
physically. Those three states, and how you have to really have all of those in congruence with each other, just to be safe,
Mhm.
just to make it through a 5-minute round. That is so applicable to other areas of
Right.
life. The second thing is that you're always learning,
Mhm.
right? So as soon as you think, oh, I got really good, I'm the best, somebody's going to come along and they're going to beat you. So it's constantly humbling and it's
Mhm.
constantly learning. You're on a never ending process and path of growth
And
learning
excellence.
and
Yep.
excellence.
Because even in business, right? I mean, your company might be doing well, the market shifts, and you stay on your same track.
Yeah.
There's an opportunity for somebody else to come
That's
in
right.
and take market
That's
share.
right.
Right? Same with jiu-jitsu. If you don't constantly work on your skills, there's a kid out there working out in their garage, trying out new things.
Yeah. Who's
Right.
going to come, and that go-to move that works for
Mhm.
you no longer works.
Yep.
And then the rest of the world figures out how to beat it, which
Right.
is constant in MMA. And you're right, that's constant in business.
Mhm.
Right? So there's the myth, there's a myth of neutrality, which is that there's such a thing.
Mhm.
There's no such thing as neutral. All of life is a trajectory towards growth and uh, and 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 excellence and learning, or there's a trajectory of entropy.
Mhm.
Right? There's no in between. There's no such
Right.
thing as neutral. Even if you said, "I'm the same as I was last year," your competition isn't the same.
Yep.
Your body isn't the same because you're a year older.
Right.
Right? So the world is progressing whether or not you're moving with it.
Yep.
So the myth of neutrality is, I'm the same as I was last year. No, you're not. You're either a year better or
Mhm.
you're a year worse, but you're not a year the same. Yeah.
Yeah. So what are you doing to stay out of that neutrality zone? Like, what are the things aside from martial arts? Are you doing business coaching or any of that sorts, or do you have like a mastermind group that you work with?
So I was part of a group, a CEO peer group called Vistage
Mhm.
for the last 5 years. I only stopped about 6 months ago because I wanted to
You got
shift.
something
Oh,
here.
thanks.
Yeah. We'll edit all this, so
Yeah.
don't worry.
I only started. Stopped going to Vistage about 6 months ago
Hmm.
because there was a focus I wanted to put on uh, uh, taking the company from a growth mindset to a process to systematizing and
Hmm.
process driven company. So we're employing the entrepreneurial operating system, EOS,
Okay.
from the book Traction by Gino Wickman. And we're going to start that in January. So it's a very internally focused
Mm.
how to structure the company.
So it's called EOS.
EOS, Entrepreneurial Operating System. And
Mhm.
that book is literally a step-by-step guide,
Wow.
roadmap on how to take your company from a CEO driven company where, founding CEO driven company where
Mhm.
you're doing
Traction.
you're
Yeah.
involved with every aspect, to how to take it out of your head and systematize out of tribal knowledge from your managers and your people and yourself, and how to really systematize it for
Mhm.
scale.
Do you feel like AI could help with that?
I have no idea.
No
I
idea.
don't know anything about
Okay.
AI. I know it exists. I don't know how to employ it.
Yeah.
I
It could be probably something you employ on the production side, right? Because you have to
Yeah.
enter measurements and all that stuff into a computer
Mhm.
at some point.
Well, we use AutoCAD and
Mhm.
SolidWorks,
Right.
but uh, here's my thoughts on AI and in general, and tech in general, which is somehow the pyramids got built and the Empire State Building got built without computers
Yeah.
and artificial intelligence, and at staggering speed, quite frankly.
Mhm.
I think it was the Empire State Building. It's like nowadays it would take 10 times the amount of time to build the same building.
Wow.
It's unbelievable how
Mhm.
quickly. So the Hoover Dam, like these incredible accomplishments and feats of human engineering, all without computers.
Mhm.
I don't even know if they had calculators
Yeah.
back then. It was what's the abacus?
Yeah.
Yeah. So I'm not opposed to it, but I don't think it's the fix all that a lot of people. I think for algorithms and stuff
Mhm.
like that, sure. But again,
What about the humanity side of it?
what do you mean?
Meaning, if this is a technology that is able to replace so many jobs, what are people going to do if their high level jobs are replaced by,
This is the age old question,
right?
right? Somehow we find a way.
Yeah.
So our societies were largely agrarian,
Hmm.
meaning farm based, because you needed people working the fields just for sustenance.
Hmm.
And last time I checked, the agrarian sector was 3% of the United States GDP.
Yeah.
Somehow we're all still eating, and more than ever before. There's a great book called Mover of Men and Mountains by R.G. Letourneau. And
Hmm.
at one point, he was, I think, the world's largest company. He ran the world's largest company of earth moving equipment,
Mm.
right? So he invented a excavator that could do the work of 100 men and 100 donkeys in a day.
Wow.
Somehow we're all still employed.
Yep.
So I'm very
So you're hopeful.
sanguine about,
Okay.
optimistic about
Hmm.
the employment of artificial intelligence, because it's always going to be supplemental and never a replacement.
Hmm.
It'll be a replacement in some areas,
Right.
but you still need people to build.
Yep.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
You still need. So I just I don't have the same fears that maybe Elon Musk has about
Hmm.
artificial. And besides, it's not going to change anything. My
Hmm.
fear isn't going to change it.
Right.
You know, it's going to progress.
Right.
That genie's out of the bottle.
Yeah.
So I don't. My my operations manager wrote a letter to our employees one time through
Hmm.
AI, and I read it, and through a Chat GPT, and I read it, and I was like, "Oh, this is rubbish. This is
Yeah.
just word salad."
Yeah.
And I took 5 minutes and wrote an email that was 1,000 times better, qualitatively better.
Right.
And that's not
And
because
also
I'm
because there's
brilliant.
probably
It's
a
like,
lot of heart in it.
it was heart. Yeah,
Yeah.
AI doesn't have heart.
And the humans can discern that.
Yeah.
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 No, that's
Yeah.
interesting.
Until we get to the Turing test where artificial intelligence can convince us it's human,
Yeah.
and we pass the Turing test, I'm not particularly concerned. And, you know, some of our mutual friends like Eric Finkelstein,
Yeah.
he doesn't know if we'll actually ever get there.
Yeah.
You know, so
And he's at the forefront.
and he's at the forefront. He
Yeah.
really understands this stuff.
Yeah.
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 So
That's
yeah,
interesting.
it's very possible that over the next 10, 15, 20 years, I'm sure we'll implement AI in some way in our company.
Mhm.
But we're a construction company,
Right.
man. At the end of the day, you're dealing with construction people
Yeah.
on a construction site.
Dirt and
Yeah, I don't think much is going to
tools and
change.
yeah, you can't put AI in a hammer, right?
You can't say to AI, go build this wall.
You're right.
Or build this railing system.
Big shout out and a huge thank you to Zekin for making this happen. They have an amazing platform. Check out their website, zekin.com, zeacon.com. So going back to work life, right? What are some of the challenges that you face every day as a business owner, father, and just growing the company as it relates to managing that time?
Managing the time.
Right?
Yeah.
Because
great.
time is our most valuable asset.
Absolutely.
Right?
Yeah. I think first and foremost, what you just said, time is our most valuable asset. That should be, we should have that in writing
Yeah.
at the top of our computer screens. And when we
look at
walk
it
into
every
our
single
office, you don't get that time back.
Mhm.
And so the reason I do my priorities the way I
Mhm.
do, and I list them in order, is because if number 5,
Now, are
if-
they? No, sorry.
Yeah.
Are they in front of your computer?
No, they're here, but I've written them
Okay.
down.
You're right.
So, okay, so if it's not written down, it doesn't exist.
Mhm.
If it's not in your calendar, it's never going to
Yep.
happen. So those are two hard and fast rules. You know this as well as I do. There's some statistic about writing stuff down and how it's, you're 500% more likely to
Mhm.
actually effectuate it than if you didn't write it down.
Yeah.
Right. So it might even be higher than that. So the priorities are written down. The sub points are written down. So
Mhm.
what does that actually look like? And so what I find is, and then there's just some instinctual, like for instance,
Mhm.
if I come home at the end of the day and I go, whew, that was a rough day, I'm still riding high on that adrenaline,
Mhm.
but in about a half an hour from when I get home, I'm going to crash and I'm going to be a monster.
Mhm.
So I have
Now
learned.
define monster.
I'm just going to be grumpy. I'm
Yeah,
going to be
okay.
short,
Yeah.
short with the kids, short with the wife. And so if that's the case, if I have done too much, I have to retreat. So
Mhm.
if it's sauna and cold, fine. If it's going to a dark room and putting the brown noise on a
Yeah.
speaker and putting a cloth over my
Right.
eyes for a half an hour, that's what I need to do. But if I start to recognize a pattern,
Mhm.
which is that I'm consumed with work, I'm talking about work too much, I'm missing workouts, I'm late coming home, then I'm out of balance.
Uh-huh.
And so those are those moments where I catch myself and I look back at my list
Mhm.
and I go, okay, where's work right now?
Right.
Right. So this is for me,
Mhm.
right? So you may be a person who's like, I'm in the process of building out my company.
Mhm.
I'm newly married. I've got a 6-month-old kid. I can take 60 or 70 hours a week and put it into my business.
Mhm.
My wife understands, so there was a time where I said, I need a year to my wife.
Mhm.
I had, my son was 1, my daughter was 3.
Right.
And I said, I need a year to really focus on my business. And she said, okay.
Mhm.
But when that year,
But that was communicated. As opposed to just lashing out.
Yeah, and then her going, hey, where do I fit into this
Right.
picture, right? So there's seasons where work is going to take, or health and whatever. Those things may shift around a little bit, but they have to be for seasons and they have to be trackable.
Mhm.
And so again, I can track in real time at any given time. Am I keeping
Mhm.
these 5 priorities in the proper priority.
Right.
There's another principle, and this is, and it's the same with training, which is, and it's actually a training principle, which is always leave enough in the tank so you can go back the next day and give it the same effort.
Mm-hmm.
Right. So I don't train to failure in weight training.
Yeah.
I did when I was bodybuilding. I don't anymore. I don't in jiu-jitsu or martial arts, because if I just pour myself out, I give it everything, I'm going to wake up the next day. I'm going to be tired. I'm going to be maybe in a bad mood, but primarily I'm not going to want to go do it again.
Right. Yeah.
Right. So when I'm coaching new martial artists, I'm always like, that's good. They're like, no, I've got more. And I'm like, no, I want you back tomorrow.
And that can be tough for some people.
That can be really tough for some people, particularly people. And I would say entrepreneurs are very driven and they're very all or nothing. So this is something I've really had to develop over the years. But I have an 80-20 principle, which is pour myself, give it all up to 80%, and then leave 20% in the tank. So if it's 3:00 p.m., and I've accomplished what I want to accomplish for the day at work, I don't start a new project. I just go, I'm done. It'll be there tomorrow. You know, and this is a discipline. We really have to know ourselves well, and we have to be self-aware. And so I love what you said about time being the most precious commodity, because if we don't keep that at the top of our at the top level of our thinking, and we don't recognize, hey, I'm not going to get that time back. Right. And so I'm not going to be able to, if I go home and my son wants to play shoots and ladders. I came home yesterday and my son said, hey, Dad, I want to go in the garage and fight. Yeah. Right. So it's like, do I have enough energy, and do I have enough? Okay, let me give your mommy a kiss. Let me give Maria a hug. You know, it's my birthday yesterday, so let's open these presents. And he wants to fight you. Huh? Yeah, he wants to fight.
He's already tried to overtake
his old man. Yeah. So I get caught up for about 10 minutes in the house, and then I go, okay, let's go. I put out some mats in the garage, and we just wrestle. We put on some boxing gloves, and we just go at it for about 10 minutes, and then he's good. Yeah. Right. I wouldn't be able to do that if I had poured myself out at work.
Right, because you could easily say, hey, I'm tired, son.
Yeah. And I'm not going to get that day back.
Yeah.
And I don't want to sit there tomorrow and go, son of a gun, I should have just wrestled with him. Yeah. Right? Now, there's a balance, obviously, because your kids are going to want all your attention. Yeah, so there's sometimes where it's
they want to go 20 rounds.
And you have to set up boundaries, right? But if time is my most precious commodity, then I need to know how to use it properly. And I need to know how to balance. And again, balance what's important to me.
Right. It's going to be different for other people.
Everyone. Now, some people have looked at, our mutual friend Tom looked at my list and said, I'm just going to copy this word for word.
Yeah, it's not going to work out the same, right? Unless it truly is for them, right?
Yeah. So that's that time piece, is recognizing. So I have another thing, which is, and I've talked about this, I may have spoken about this earlier in the podcast, which is I want to be successful at all 5.
Yeah.
Right. So if my net worth is $50 million, but I'm 50 pounds overweight, that's not success to me, because I want to be athletic, and I want to be lean, and I want to chase my kids around the park. That's one of my priorities in health and exercise. Yeah. Right.
And it allows you to enjoy that wealth.
Absolutely.
Right. As opposed to paying a hospital or doctor to fix
it's
whatever ailment.
Right. Yeah. Know? I want to live till I'm 100.
Yeah. That's possible, I guess.
So, and I want to live well. Yeah. That's the other key. Right. So again, I like money. I love success. I want to enjoy the finer things in life. But my definition of wealth is that I have the freedom to spend time with the people I love and to have the kind of lifestyle that allows me to enjoy life. And so wealth to me is my relationships, and it takes money to be able to afford that nice vacation, or, I like luxury watches. You know,
Yeah.
I don't care about
Let's
cars. I don't care
tell me about your
boats.
watch. What you're wearing right? Panerai. What made you get that particular model?
It's just beautiful.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I only like Rolexes and Panerais.
Okay.
But I really like Rolexes and Panerais. So I'm building up a collection over the years. So, you know, I like to take my wife to nice restaurants. I like to go shopping. I send my kids to private school. You know what I mean? So these things are important to me, but those things are far less important than what my portfolio looks like.
Right.
My portfolio is a means to an end. So I have no interest in
just hoarding. Yeah.
Right. And again, if that's your thing, great.
Burying the gold in the dirt and then digging it back up just to see if it's still there.
I want to spend that.
Yeah.
You know. And, you know, philanthropy and giving is a really high priority for us as well. It's part of my faith priority. It's written down in my faith priority, which is our ability to give. And so it takes money to give.
Yeah.
You know. Yeah.
Yeah. And, you know, the more you have, the more you can share, the more impact
absolutely
you have.
Yeah.
Right. And what are some of the organizations that you support and why?
I'm glad you asked that. Yeah. So we support Olive Crest, which is
what is
a local adoption and foster agency. They had me when they said that their mission statement was to change the trajectory of young people's lives. And I just thought, wow, what a brilliant way of
how do they do that?
Putting it. Well, again, placing kids in foster and adoption agencies. So they're a private company that works with the state to do this. We support real estate from the sex trade, Rest. That's a local. Have
you seen that movie, Sound of Freedom?
Yeah. Yeah. It's very much in line with that.
Okay.
So Rest is local, and then Rescue Freedom, I believe they just changed their name to Atlas, but they're an international company. But they both serve the same purpose, which is to provide housing and education and jobs to bring women and men, particularly internationally young boys, out of the sex trade and provide them an opportunity to, again, change the trajectory of their lives. So we're big supporters of them. And then we support World Vision because they feed people around the country, around the world. So those four are our big ones.
Okay. So why are you passionate about those in particular?
I've been given a gift, man.
Yeah.
And I want to spend, again, when I talk about spending, I'm talking about my money. I'm talking about my time. I'm talking about my giftings, my whatever. And so I don't have a lot of time, but I do have money. And so financially, we can give to these organizations that are doing a lot better. So I'm not going to be down at the soup kitchen.
Right.
Because I want to go, because that time that I'm spending down there could be spent on earning an income.
Yep.
And I can be 1,000, maybe even 10,000 times more effective by earning money than I can by being physically somewhere. So yeah, I believe that every most successful people, you know, you've heard about the 1% or the 99% pledge that all these billionaires have, which is to give 99% of their income away by the time they die. And I just think it's a beautiful thing to recognize. I was given a certain gift of, of drive and passion, of intellect, of leadership. And I've also been given a gift of financial freedom. And so it's of no benefit to me personally to sit on a wad of cash if I can actually change the lives of people in this world. So it's always been a thing for us. And as we grow in our level of income and our financial success, the rate at which we give has actually increased. And so, 10% 15 years ago was the minimum, and we've gone up, we've just raised the amount that we give with our success.
And it also could have remained the same, but now the impact is greater because 10% of a bigger number is still.
Yeah. And we grow, like I said, we grow that percentage as well as,
right,
you know,
right.
so that percentage has gone up significantly. But I have no, I'm not leaving my kids a fortune because I don't think that's good for them.
Right.
And so we actually have a fidelity fund that gives out of our capital gains in our portfolio.
Yeah.
So that's something that will exist in perpetuity long after I'm gone. So this is what's interesting to me, right? Is we can put money in our portfolio, watch it make money, set up a fidelity fund that funds these charities that are important to us. And
it's a donor advised fund.
Yeah. And it exists for forever, as long as, you know, the technology exists. So I know we're limited on time. So there's one last thing I kind of want to talk about. And this is this idea of living an asymmetric life. Okay.
And for those that don't know asymmetric, what does that mean?
Asymmetry. How would I explain asymmetric? Imbalanced in a good way.
Okay.
So Kobe Bryant is asymmetrically talented at basketball. Right. He's so far above everybody that the talent, you know, if there's a median talent and then there's asymmetrically unathletic and asymmetrically athletic, he's on the asymmetrically athletic side of things. And so the idea here is that one of the things that successful people, particularly people who are successful in all avenues of life, have in common is that they consistently make good decisions. Okay. So asymmetry is about stacking good decisions on good decisions on good decisions. So let me give you an example. If you drink enough water every day, you're probably in the top 25% of the country, right? Most people don't drink enough water.
Yeah.
So you're already in the top 25%. Now let's say that you avoid refined sugars, that you eat or that you train 3 days a week, and that you're within 10 pounds of what your body weight should be for your size, height, whatever. Yeah. Well, now you're all of a sudden in like the top 1% of the country, maybe in the top 0.5% of the country, right? So why do I train? Why do I, why do I do hard things consistently? Because I know that they're going to lead to better results. So if I have the option between I can go home and nap or I can go to the gym, both are good. Both aren't going to ruin your life, but one's going to be better. And maybe for that day it is nap, right? But every decision we make, there's again, the myth of neutrality is also the myth of small decisions, which is inconsequential decisions. This doesn't really move the needle one way or another. It does. It moves the needle incrementally. But if you consistently move the needle incrementally in the right direction, you're 60. And this is the other thing about asymmetry. It doesn't present itself immediately. So if you have two 21-year-olds and one is doing all the right things and one is doing all the wrong things, both of their income is probably going to be similar. Their health is probably going to be similar. There's going to be a lot of similarities because they're both young and healthy and starting out. But when they get to 50, the chasm between those two is monumental, right? 60, 70, 80, it becomes bigger and bigger and bigger. So this idea of living an asymmetrically good life is just something I've really been focused on, taking those priorities and trying to say, how do I make good decisions day after day? Because they don't add up. They compound. They exponentiate.
Yeah, and you can even see it, right? If with friend groups, right? Where some friends are partying, you don't see it right away, but then in your 50s, you see the difference.
That's very well said.
Right?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah. So who you surround yourself is important.
Yep.
Who you welcome into your inner circle, who you go have lunch with, who who you run ideas by.
Yeah.
These are, how do you, again, these are asymmetrically good. So I have gathered for myself, you were at my birthday last year,
Yeah.
70 people, great time. I've gathered a group of friends, but the ones that I really have tight is a lot smaller than 70. But I've gathered a group of friends that tests me, that asks me questions, that nurtures curiosity, that inform me. Like, you've spent a lot of time asking me questions in this podcast, but I spend a lot of time asking you questions in our lives together too, because we're learning from each other and we're teaching each other.
Iron sharpens iron.
Iron sharpens iron. So the people you surround yourself with is, I would say, especially as we grow and we get older, it's even more important. Yeah, I mean, obviously it's more important, but I almost think it's maybe even more important than the books you read and the systems you follow.
Yeah, because the books you read, I mean, you're consuming the information.
Yeah.
There's no feedback. The book is not
that's really good.
hitting you in the head saying, "Oh, you did this wrong."
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
Sort of like how we train in jiu-jitsu. I mean, if your arm's cut, that means you did something wrong.
Right.
And I'm going to tell you what you did wrong.
That's right.
You know.
Yeah, that's really good. So there's that feedback mechanism.
So as we close out, I know you mentioned this earlier. What's your definition of success? If you had to recap everything in a concise way.
Being able to live the lifestyle you want to live.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
It's freedom.
So maybe I could say it another way. Enjoying the fruits of your labor.
Mm-hmm.
What do we labor on? We labor on our marriage. We labor on our children. We labor on our business. We labor on our health. We labor on our friendships. I want to enjoy the fruits of those. And so
it's well said.
Whatever my net worth is now compared to what my net worth is in 10 years, I'm successful. And so, there are objective measures of financial and business success. But that is one factor in a multifactorial definition of success that I hold.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Well, thanks for coming on the show.
Thanks, buddy.
Yeah.
I love you.
Love you too. All right. Thank you for tuning into this show. If you found value in what our guests shared and what we share on the show, please feel free to share with your friends and family. We'd love to see you back here. Thank you again. And you can find us on pretty much every social media channel, YouTube, iTunes, and Spotify as well. Thank you for watching. Thank you for tuning in. Step into the unscripted arena.